Consistent parenting. To be successful, parents must not only teach God's truth to their children, but be on guard against failing to practice what they teach. Here's Gene.
Now, as we look at the Proverbs, King Solomon authored most of these Proverbs. No question about that. However, we meet another man at the end of the book of Proverbs. His name is King Lemuel. We're not sure who King Lemuel is, particularly, although we know that it's a personal name, which means devoted to God. It appears that perhaps his kingdom was really in the area of Edom, which means he probably was a Gentile, but a godly man. And he had a godly mother. And so in the final chapter, King Lemuel, in his oracle, wrote what Solomon had said. He summarizes what Solomon had shared with his own son. And in this case, and this is fascinating, in this case, Lemuel reiterated what his own mother had taught him about sexual promiscuity particularly, but a lot more than that, because the whole of Proverbs 31 probably is a restatement of what this king had learned from his mother, who was probably not an Israelite, was probably a Gentile who was a God-fearing Gentile, even in this Old Testament world and culture. Now, let's take a look at what we read here. Proverbs 31, 1-3. The words of King Lemuel, an oracle that his mother taught him. What should I say, my son? What son of my womb? What son of my vows? Don't spend your energy on women or your efforts on those who destroy kings. And one of the things, of course, throughout the book of Proverbs is that Solomon had warned his own son again and again and again not to get involved with prostitutes, with strange women. And here is what he's talking about. And so King Lemuel reiterates the importance of these exhortations from Solomon. Now, the sad part about this is that Solomon didn't walk his talk. He had a lot of wisdom, but unfortunately, he didn't walk his talk. And the results were devastating. Devastating in his life, devastating in the lives of the nation, devastating the lives of his own children. And it's a very, very sad story. Now, the question that comes up here that I think is very, very important, that is, why has God exposed these sins so openly? You read through the Old Testament. I mean, in some cases, it's, in our culture, we'd say R-rated. I mean, it's very explicit in some of the stuff that is recorded there. Why is God so specific about these sins? Well, I think Paul answers the question. He answered in the New Testament in his letter to the Corinthians, a group of believers, by the way, that were converted out of some very serious, immoral kinds of situations. And so in 1 Corinthians we read, now these things became examples for us so that we will not desire evil things as they did. In other words, God knew that we needed specifics. And so he just lays it out. And by the way, that's one of the greatest testimonies, the fact that the Word of God is indeed the Word of God. Because if man wanted to make man look good, he would have avoided all of this. And God just lays it out to illustrate that we've all sinned and fall short of the glory of God, and without God, we will deteriorate. All we have to do is read Romans chapter 1. And that's the story of cultures. Generation after generation. Millennium after millennium. So we read another warning here in 1 Corinthians 10, verse 12. So whoever thinks he stands must be careful not to fall. You know, here's Solomon, who had all of this truth and all this wisdom, the wisest man in the world at that time, and yet he fell. And one of the reasons he fell was he violated the very thing that God told him not to do, and that is he married a woman who was a godless woman who was an idolater. And that opened the door for him then to be led into idolatry and all the immorality that followed in violating what he taught his own son. So, question for reflection and response: why is it so important not only to heed Paul's warning regarding temptation, but to claim the promise outlined in 1 Corinthians 10:13? This is a powerful verse. In some respects, a very convicting verse. 1 Corinthians 10:13. No temptation has overtaken you except what is common to humanity. God is faithful, and He will not allow you to be tempted beyond what you're able, but with the temptation, He will also provide a way of escape so that you are able to bear it. Now, why is it so important to heed that warning? Well, first of all, if we heed this warning, it will help us to avoid rationalizing. For example, to get to the place where we say, I have no way out. I can't help myself. And God says there is a way out. With the temptation, there's a way of escape. Now, that certainly includes accountability within the body of Jesus Christ. That's part of it. There is a way out. Honesty, openness, accountability, as we see in applying other principles. The reality is that some people who say, I have no way out, they don't want a way out. They want to continue. They even refuse to pray that they'll find the way out because they know that they could find a way out and they don't want the way out. That's how subtle sin is and temptation in our lives. And if we don't claim this promise that there is a way out and believe it, we'll never experience it as a reality. And that's why it's so important that we heed Paul's warning. Let me restate the principle. To be successful, parents must not only teach God's truth to their children, but be on guard against failing to practice what they teach. And here, of course, we see the importance of example.